First, let me ask for unanimous consent to include into the record statements submitted by Tom Davidson of the Bonefish and Tarpon Trust and Bruce Popham of Marathon Boatyard Marine Center, who support the services proposal. And in opposition, I would like to submit statements from Carl Liederman of Captain Harry's Fishing Supply Company, Jefferson Angers, president of the Center for Coastal Conservation, Joe Niebuhr of Contender Boats Incorporated, Don Waters, a Florida State spear fishing champion with over 40 years of experience in diving and fishing in the park, Carl Wickstrom, the founder of Florida Sportsman, and Rob Southwick, president of Southwick Associates, which conducted a socioeconomic impact study of the services proposal. I also have a letter to Secretary Salazar from both of Florida's senators, Senator Bill Nelson and Senator Marco Rubio, that was sent yesterday in opposition to the Park Services proposal. So without objection, I'd like to ask that these be included in the record, seeing no objection. Now to my questions. Biscayne National Park is the largest marine park in the national park system. My constituents visit the park for all the recreational activities available there. A large component of these activities is recreational fishing, which supports and sustains angling and angling-related jobs in South Florida. A healthy fishery is vital to these businesses, and we should work on conserving these natural resources and certainly not locking them up. Just to offer a few statistics, Florida's approximately 2 million saltwater anglers annually contribute approximately $3 billion in retail sales, 50,000 jobs, and over $345 million in state and local tax revenues. Similarly, the boating industry supplies over 200,000 jobs and over $16 billion in economic impact statewide each year, with a substantial portion of that economic output occurring in South Florida. Now, in their letter, Senators Nelson and Rubio say, quote, "The measures proposed in the Park Service plan represent the most extreme tools available for making fishery management modifications to Biscayne National Park, ignoring alternative ways to achieve the desired resource improvements without sacrificing the public's ability to access and enjoy the park," unquote. The Biscayne National Park Fishery Management Plan Working Group, and Mr. Curlett, you were the chairman of the working group, in their capacity to consult on the fisheries portion of the park's general management plan, did not include implementing marine reserves or no-take zones within the park in their final recommendations. However, the Park Service, in their preferred alternative plan, Plan 4, does include a marine reserve. So, first, Mr. Frost, the service went against the recommendation of the working group?
Well, the working group was dealing primarily with fishery issues and fishery management plan. The GMP is a much broader document, and it looks at all aspects of how we manage a national park. And so, and as part of the MOU, we mentioned in the MOU that while we weren't going to look at marine reserves in the fisheries management plan, we reserved the right to look at a marine reserve as part of the larger GMP process. And so if you read the GMP in its entirety, it's really not just about fishing, it's about visitor use and visitor experience. And so Biscayne was established to provide a variety of visitor experiences. People like to come there to snorkel, they like to come to scuba dive, they come to watch wildlife, they come just to hang out and be quiet, and then they come to fish. And so there's a variety of users. And so the GMP is trying to make those visitor experiences to everyone available. And so what the Marine Reserve is going to do is that while it will restrict fishing in that 7% of the park, it's not going to restrict anything else. Boats are still going to be able to go into that area. They're going to be able to tie up to moorings. They're going to be able to dive. They're going to be able to snorkel. They're going to be able to swim in the water. And so it's just we're trying to, but at the same time, by doing that, we're going to allow that fisheries to recoup. And what that's going to provide is it's going to provide sort of a respite from the pressure of the fishing. And those fish along the coral reef, they're going to grow and they're going to be bigger. And that's what people want to see. They want to come and see big fish. And as a result, as that happens over time, those fish are going to spill out, and it's going to be available for fisheries options too. So
well, you really read my mind in terms of that distinction between the GMP and a fishery management plan. So let me ask you specifically. I believe in the Memorandum of Understanding which the service has with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. All fisheries within the park will be governed cooperatively with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission in a fishery management plan, not a general management plan. So why is the Park Service placing fishery management issues in the general management plan and not the fishery management plan? And how is that consistent with the MOU?
Well, again, as I stated previously, the general management plan is looking at visitor use primarily, and as a sort of a side thing for visitor use, trying to enhance those recreational opportunities. You're going to get some fisheries benefit. The GMP is not trying to regulate a fisheries there. It's really about how do we operate a park to provide a broad opportunity for all visitors, not just one subset of visitors, but all visitors, an opportunity to experience the park the way it was envisioned when it was created back in the 60s.
Well, let me ask Mr. Wright, in Mr. Popham's statement in support of the park's proposals, he brings up the protected areas in Dry Tortugas National Park, which you mentioned earlier. I guess first I'd like you to comment on Mr. Frost's comments just now, but also, I know you mentioned it earlier, but briefly compare and contrast Dry Tortugas National Park and Biscayne National Park.
Let me take the latter first, if I can, Mr. Chairman. First of all, there is no scientific basis for the almost intuitive assumption, if you will, that by closing an area within the Biscayne National Park that there are going to be, quote, big fish, and that big fish will migrate from that and will enhance fishing opportunities surrounding that area. That there simply is no, I'm not saying that that is an incorrect statement. I'm saying that I have consulted with my staff and I'm being told there's no scientific basis to make that statement. And of course, then there's no scientific basis for the closure that's based on that assumption. With regard to taking an area and enhancing the experience.
Before you go there, can you also briefly describe the consultation the service had with the commission on the Dry Tortugas or the comparison, and what you were just talking about, the comparison between Dry Tortugas and Biscayne National Park? Was there any consultation?
There was a consultation, and we supported that. And that is a completely different ecosystem. It was impacted and was to benefit in that closure, if you will, because of the very distinct stresses upon it. But it is remote from activities. It's, as I indicate, it's 200 square miles as opposed to 16 square miles. There were a lot of reasons why, based on the science and based on the recommendation of our scientists, we did support that. Okay. But we do not support this one. And we do not believe that there should be a closure denying anglers an opportunity and if you will, at their expense, providing an opportunity for others. That we have found, the commission has found, that the resource can be managed effectively and access can be granted to all persons, but not necessarily to exclusive groups.
And did you want to comment at all on any of the earlier comments from Mr. Frost on the use?
Well, on the use on the use issue, that's what I was speaking to, Congressman. We as a commission regulate fisheries and have historically regulated them while providing the most protection with the least regulation. And it is our belief, it is my belief as a commissioner, and I speak for my commission and for our staff, that there are many other successful tools in our toolbox to regulate this area in consultation with the Park Service for the goals that they claim they want to achieve without leaping directly to the most draconian measure, which is a closure of use or limitation of use.
Mr. Frost, have you consulted with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission on Biscayne National Park? And how was their input incorporated?
Yes, I know that our superintendent and our regional director had just met recently with staff from the Florida Fish and Game Commission, and that we certainly, I mean, the bottom line is we need the state fish and game agencies to work closely with us, and we want to continue to reach out to the commission and to the staff to continue the dialogue. The thing we have to remember is we haven't made a decision. This is a proposal. We're continuing to have those discussions. We want to have additional discussions before the plan becomes final. So we absolutely have reached out, and we're going to continue to reach out before the plan becomes finalized later this year.
Well, let me go directly there to these proposals. I see in alternatives 3 and 5, you included a permit zone in the northwest portion of the park. My understanding is that anglers would have been required to purchase a permit to fish in those waters. Instead of a marine reserve, would the service consider this proposal for the reserve no-take zones in alternative 4? First question. And perhaps ban fishing for specific species seasonally during their spawning periods. I've been told enforcement has been a problem in the past. Perhaps funds generated from the permits or fines from infractions can be used for increased patrols and inspectors. So have less intrusive proposals like this been studied and evaluated?
Absolutely. I mean, as you stated in the other alternatives, we have evaluated those alternatives, and we have to be a little bit careful because we don't want to be pre-decisional here and sort of mess up the NEPA process. But we've heard all the comments. And we're considering them. So absolutely, we're going to look at those options and see how we can make the best decision possible in the final general management plan.
In meetings I've had with the Parks Director, Mark Lewis, I've been told that anglers do not even fish in the proposed marine preserve. So can you provide the committee within the next week with any surveys or studies the service has done to come to this determination and the methodology of that survey?
We will provide you whatever we have, absolutely.
Let me ask Mr. Crook, since you gave your testimony earlier, any thoughts that you may have regarding anything you've heard today from the Park Service or anyone else?
Yes, I would like to make a sort of a summary comments as to the use of the park. Superintendent Mark Lewis mentions 15 to 20 moorings with no anchoring. This is so far away from the current use that enhanced use of the park and the benefits that it provides don't seem to be consistent. In the case of the coral reefs, we have to look at numerous threats that are happening all over the world, and it's not just angling. We've got disease, we've got warming, acidification, and we have environmental issues that took place 30, 40, 50 years ago that are probably a major effect on the fisheries over the last 10, 20 years. When I was growing up, about a mile north of the Featherbeds banks, you could no longer see the bottom of the bay. Today, you can see the bottom of the bay almost to the Rickenbacker Causeway. The water cleanliness, the water quality is a major issue as to what happened to the park. I contend that when the University of Miami in 1999 said fish stocks were down, I would not dispute that. And I say this from a common user's point of view, not a scientist, not a enforcement agency or some fisheries commission, but from our customers, the people that are with us. The quality of water today is better. That will start to generate a habitat. The grass beds are better in the North Bay. It will improve the habitat that is in the park. And over time, and I can talk almost to an angler, to a charter boat guy, and probably to most law enforcement, there is better fishery today than there was 10 or 15 years ago. There are issues, and we can get into species specifics, that will tell you that there are exceptions to what I've just said. And I would not deny that. But that falls back to fish management. It's an ongoing effort that needs to be made. Just stripping access and making closures is not the answer. The economic impact, I was talking to a charter boat guy. If we start making closures, the amount of dollars that they generate, it doesn't just go to the charter captain, the charter boat. It goes to the suppliers of products he needs. It goes to his crew who earn livelihoods from it. The people he buys stuff, there are livelihoods at stake. So, to date, the fishing establishments in Miami have decreased severely over the last 5 years under current economic conditions. If we further reduce the economic value which fishing brings to South Florida, we're going to affect more livelihoods.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Curlat, do you want to have any final thoughts?
Congressman Rivera, if I might, two things. You hit on the Fishery Management Plan Working Group and not coming to a decision to close, have an RNA. They didn't have a decision not to have one. In fact, we were told we could not have one under that MOU. We were scheduled for 5 meetings. We had to have a 6th meeting because we started pushing on that. I said we, the group did, the stakeholders did. From Bill Curtis, who had fished that resource for 60 years. I want to tell you that there's nowhere near the fish there today that there were 60 years ago. And we had a 6th meeting, and we were that many votes away from agreeing to a 8,500 acre RNA in the park. So the Fishery Management Group did kick it around. Second, we continue to hear testimony that there are other tools in the box to use. The fishery was depleted. The last scientific report in 1999. Where the heck are the tools? The tools have been there, the same tools. What tools have been used to bring it back? Once again, this is a patient on life support. Giving it a couple aspirins and sending it home and say, we'll look at you tomorrow is not going to work. I fished there. I live within a 5-mile ride of the Carriageford no-take zone. I see the success story there. So I'm a recreational angler.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the chairman for holding this hearing on a very important issue that affects the real lives of a lot of people, both in North Carolina and in Florida, and really for the nation. I think Congresswoman Ross Layton, Congressman Diaz-Balart, Congressman Jones were very prescient in their comments to note the real impact that this has on our fisheries and on our economy. I want to thank the panelists as well. Thank all of you for being here, for your time and effort. I look forward to receiving the information from the Park Service as we go forward.